Okay, so let's just get your story really quick. You're involved with chiropractors, self-empowerment. You recently just got engaged, so maybe you'll be doing some stuff with some couples. What's Dr. Fred's story? What would you like us to know?
Well, first of all, chiropractic is a universal law. A universal intelligence comes through us. We're innate intelligence. And that's a universal law. It's a law of life. It's a law of God. It's a law of the universe. So that is always right. Never question the principle, only question the application of chiropractic. Mm-hmm. Chiropractic works. If it doesn't work, question your application, but never question the principle. And so that on that foundation, it gives you conviction. BJ talks about the adjustment with the extra something. And I work with a lot of CVP docs. But, when you look at my story, I always saw the message of chiropractic to change humanity. Having a spiritual belief that we're here in this physical body and we're chiropractors, it's a message for humanity. And we want to see humanity change in our lifetime. And with that motivation and conviction, and I was a principle guy first, then I believed in spinal correction. If subluxation blocks innate intelligence or universal intelligence or our connection to universal intelligence, and we need to learn how to fix the spine, because there's a difference between adjustments and spinal correction. And now the research has gone far enough that even medicine knows about the relationship between posture, curves, and cord. It's no longer just a bone on a nerve. It's you have a curve problem. It causes stress to the cord. Stress to the cord also affects brain function. And now there's tons of research how an adjustment stimulates the brain. The more we understand the nervous system, so not only on a physiologic level, but on an energetic level. And then BJ talks about the adjustment with that extra something, and there's a difference when I see the difference and I hear about the difference with doctors that are mechanics trying to fix the spine versus doctors that understand that an adjustment is a healing experience. And from your own personal experience that when you have that intention and you give an adjustment and you have a very strong knowledge, clinical knowledge of spinal biomechanics and what you're doing to change structure, healing takes place. I noticed it when I had associates. I saw myself as a healer with the understanding of spinal biomechanics. And I would adjust patients, or organ problems would go away. If I went on vacation or they would see my associate for a while, they would come back and they would say, my organ problems are coming back, but they were still getting adjusted 3 times a week. And so it was probably A, my knowledge on mechanics, and B, I already knew when I would adjust somebody, I expected them to be healed. I saw energy moving in their body. I had that intention, and they, a couple adjustments or organ problems would be gone. And I would have people that went to chiropractors for years, their organ problems didn't go away, and they would come to me and their organ problems would go away. Mm-hmm. So it's like, what's your understanding of the adjustment?
Right.
And so I look at the principle of chiropractic, never question the principle. When you make an adjustment, you're releasing energy, their body is healing. Mm-hmm. So, and after every adjustment, I used to tell people you're healed, which is a premonition, because then I wrote the book, You're More Powerful Than You Think. And after my wife passed away, well, you know this story, right before she passed away, 3 weeks before she died, she was taking a bath and we were planning her life celebration service. And then she started bawling. Howling out loud. And I said, baby, what's wrong? And she said, I don't know if I did what I was supposed to do in this life. And the weight of that, it happens to be also the biggest regret. One of the biggest regrets in life that is worse than the fate of dying is living a life without meaning. It's the most important thing in a human life, is to make meaning in your life, to make a difference. And if you're a chiropractor watching this, most powerful meaning to be able to give an adjustment, to connect people back with universal intelligence, their innate connected to universal intelligence, to have their body healed, to understand spinal correction, to be able to change their life for the rest of their life, and be able to change their mindset to teach them lifestyle. I think there's no greater gift than you can give them is to connect them back with God, which is another name for universal intelligence. But I noticed through coaching, nobody, they push patient education, give them information and hope that they get it, right? And I went through the first 11 years with people quitting with a 40 PVA, right? The average person staying for 40 visits. Finally, I got tired of losing people. With the bigger your practice is, your bank account looks a little different, but you're actually failing faster. Higher volume practices with a 40 PVA, which is pretty good. It's your patient visit average. So you look at how many visits is the average patient staying. They're just losing more people faster. Their bank account looks different. They are making a bigger difference with more people. But when every person counts, having a spiritual foundation, thinking that if God sent me one and I didn't teach that person to live that way, then why would he send me 100 or 1,000 more? Because in the Bible, it says to be a great leader, right? You got to be faithful with the small things to be able to be given big things. So if I want to get big things, I got to be faithful with small things. Mm-hmm. So that's the way I looked at it. So I started studying. When I realized the answer to getting 9 out of 10 in the lifestyle did not exist in chiropractic, I started studying human behavior. How do people make life-changing decisions? So I did it on a selfish reason. I started putting all this, created a whole patient management communication system. My practice went through the roof. It happened automatically. I saw people bringing families automatically. I didn't even have to ask them. They brought families in. They stayed longer. More people going into lifestyle. And then one day I looked at my schedule. There was a bunch of people on there. I didn't know if I could do it. There was, 232 people that day with like 8 new patients and a bunch of re-exams. And I'm like, shit, I don't even know if I can do this today. Yeah. I mean, I was like, well, I'm sure I can, but I'm going to be really freaking busy. And I mean, there are people that do more, but I just prayed over my schedule. A year and a half later, I knew there was something bigger. I didn't think that, that day there, I knew I was going to see 300 people a day in a few months, but I had probably 10,000 people driving by my office. Yeah. And I realized I'm not even touching my community. How am I going to impact the world? So I prayed over my schedule, said there's got to be something better than that, bigger. Show me my next purpose. A year and a half later, I started coaching, and that was 20 years ago.
Awesome. That's so cool.
Here we are now, right? Yeah. We have a whole new model. I see that chiropractors, if you want to change people's belief systems, they come in wanting back pain relief, right?
Yep.
And we want them to live differently. So you're actually a self-empowerment coach. So I see the chiropractors are actually self-empowerment coaches with a healthcare application.
Absolutely. Now, there's some people who will be watching this video who have no premise of really what chiropractic is. So if you could sum up chiropractic for people who aren't aware of what chiropractic is, how would you describe it?
So basically everything I said, you have no idea what I'm talking about if you're listening to that. Basically what it is, your brain and spinal cord send energy to all the organs. So, and all those organs are dependent on that energy to keep you alive and healthy. So when your spine is out of alignment, whether it's a bone or a whole region of the spine, right here's pre-consultation script, then it causes stress to the nerves. It blocks the energy. It's like a dimmer switch on a wall, shuts the energy down. And then those organs will eventually break down, degenerate, and cause disease. The whole problem is a problem in one area weakens the rest of the structure of your spine. We know that as posture, and there's tons of medical research that show the relationship between posture and overall health. People that have postural distortions they develop disease, autoimmune, their organs begin to break down to the point where some don't even live as long. And so the function of your posture, the function of your nervous system, the longevity and the quality of your life will be significantly different if your spine is out of alignment. Now, if you keep your spine in alignment and you have a healthy spine, healthy discs, healthy curves, you're going to live a healthier and longer life. It shows people like scoliosis, for example, that's an S curve in your spine. They have a shortened lifespan. They tend to live 14 years less than people that don't have one. People that develop hunches in their back, they definitely have a shortened lifespan. They don't live as long as people that don't have a hunch in their back. And they tend to have more disease. The more forward flex you are, the less you live, and the more sick and the more diseased you are. And those are medical studies.
Right. And now with everybody looking at their cell phones, everybody's got the forward head posture. The majority.
Exactly. So hang on one second. I wrote a book on it, right? It's called Back to Health. And this is a book about our technology-based society, the relationship between your posture and the relationship between your health and disease. And this has all medical studies. So you can go to H.E.A.L.E.D, E-L-I-T-E, coaching, LLC.com and get a copy of this book, and it will change the way you live your life, guaranteed. Give you a whole new perspective on how to stay healthy in this world. Right.
Nice. Cool. So what about let's talk about You're More Powerful Than You Think. You want to grab that one really quick?
Yeah. This is another book I wrote. You can go to You Are More Powerful, spell it out, Y-O-U-A-R-E, morepowerful.com. And this was what happened after my wife died. I mean, when she said I didn't do what I was supposed to do in my life, a very loud voice in my head, no one said to me, no one will ever say that to me again. 4 years later, the acronym H.E.A.L.E.D fell on me. And from that one statement, no one will say that again. H.E.A.L.E.D is a system to tap into our innate divinity. Starts right from Genesis 1:27. We're created in the likeness and image of God, so that we are divine first. We're here for a reason. Helps you clear of the pain of your past and find your soul purpose. S-O-U-L, why you're here. So that was a book written for the general public and chiropractors to help you find your soul purpose and live a life with meaning.
Right. And these two books are the way that you're connecting the bridge between chiropractic and self-empowerment, right?
Yes.
Right. So how would you say you've experienced the people who have gone through these systems? How have they described their environments changing after having gone through the H.E.A.L.E.D weekends or going through elite coaching? How are their environments changing?
Well, their environment changes according to how you change, right? And so one thing I found is chiropractors, people in general, business people, they're only as successful as their level of consciousness. So you only ever have one problem in your life, your level of consciousness, which means whatever your thoughts are at that time, how you feel about yourself, what your belief systems are, that's where you're going to be in life. And so people that the elite is actually a professional self-empowerment leadership training. We do teach a lot of spiritual principles, and a bunch of doctors have gone through the H.E.A.L.E.D system. When they become more powerful on the inside, their practice grows, they become a better leader. You can influence with your presence. In other words, your conviction becomes stronger. They find that they're more peaceful, they're more joyful in their life. They tend to attract more people. Their businesses are more successful. Obviously, if they're going through elite coaching, they're learning chiropractic, business, communication, and all that. Their marriages are better. Their relationships are better. They become more financially successful. their practices grow, they have more peace, they're more peaceful from the inside out. So they don't have the same problems and the same fears. And I mean, you become a more clear and powerful version of yourself. You become more like who God created you to be.
Definitely. Do you have a story that you could think of? You talk about you seeing a lot of patients, but there's a few patients that are stuck in your head that maybe made an impact on you, and why? What was the story?
Well, there's two that come to well, there's three that come to mind automatically. So we expect miracles. So the people that have healed of diseases are, I mean, there is a finite number, but there's so many, you expect miracles. The ones that stick out aren't the ones that had healing miracles or the ones that died. Although they did have healing miracles. One of them was a little Italian woman. She was about this tall, kind of like your grandmother, real feisty. She was 92 years old. She grew up with chiropractic, and she came in and she would get adjusted. She would come in consistently. And then one day she came back. She missed a couple appointments because she was in the hospital and her kidneys failed. So she showed up on a Friday, and her name was Rose. And she had these bright blue eyes. And she came in and she said, my kidneys failed. The doctor said, if I don't stay on dialysis and stay in the hospital this weekend, I'm going to be dead by Monday. This was Friday. She goes, I'm not dying in no effing hospital, is what she said. And she said, I want you to come to my house. And I'm like, all right. So I adjusted her that day. I started going to her house on Monday, and I would leave at lunch, and I would drive to her house, and I would adjust her at lunch 3 times a week. And she lived for 3 months.
Nice.
And then one Friday, she never went to the hospital or got dialysis. And then a Friday I went there and she said, okay, I'm done. And I go, what do you mean? And she looked at me and said, I just wanted you to come and adjust me long enough so I could get things in order and say goodbye to the people I want. And so I'm done. You don't have to come here anymore. And I just looked in her eyes. She had these just bright blue eyes. And I just stared in her eyes like we were spiritually connecting. And I said, okay. And I gave her a hug and I said, I'll see you on the other side, but I got a lot of stuff to do, so it's going to be a little while. And that's what she did. She kind of snickered for a little bit.
That's funny.
And then I walked out, and her daughter came to me the following Tuesday and said she passed away on Monday.
Wow.
So that's one. I got other very dramatic ones.
Yeah. Wow, that's a cool one.
Yeah, that's good. But that's the adjustment with the extra something, man. I knew if I adjusted her, her kidneys will work.
Yeah.
And she knew it.
That's so cool. What a cool patient and an experience.
Oh, she was awesome, man. She was very feisty. But she used to say, she goes, I can see auras. And she goes, you have a purple aura around you. And I said, well, what's purple mean? And she means you're a healer, because I focused on that.
Yeah.
That was my consciousness. I believe if I adjust you, whatever's in your body that's not right is going to get right. And I expect it.
Yep.
And if it doesn't get right, I'm confused. And let's do it again, or come every day till it's gone. It's going to be gone.
Yeah, yeah.
Because God moves through an adjustment. And he sent you to me so I could do this.
Yeah.
So he's going to take care of it.
Yeah. So cool.
And that was it. I didn't think past that.
Yeah.
And that's where simplicity is true brilliance.
Yeah.
And I guess the dumber you are, ignorance is bliss. So if that's ignorance, and I want to be a dumb mofo for the rest of my life, I'm chiropractic.
Yeah, that's funny. Nice. So
yeah, I have another story if you want to hear it.
Yeah, I do want to hear it.
Well, I had a guy come in. His mother was a patient, and she called me. And she goes, "My son has AIDS, And well, this is in my book. You read it in my book. And she goes, I got to take him out of the hospital. I'm taking him home. Doctor said, take him home so he can die. So he pulled up in the parking lot Friday afternoon, and I went out there, and this guy looked like he was, in a concentration camp. He looked like he's walking out of Auschwitz. He had an IV in his chest, a shunt with chemo, and I mean, I had to carry him. He didn't even have the strength to stand. And he was like a bag of bones. So I pulled the shunt out of chemo first of all, and his mom had to hold him up, to stand, barely stand in front of the X-ray machine. So I started adjusting him. I'm like, here's what you got to eat. You need to start putting nutrients in your body. And he came back to life, and he came back totally normal. Brought in his blood test. T lymphocytes were back to normal. And that became pretty popular in the AIDS community. So I started getting all these AIDS patients, and they would come in with their chemo bubbles. I tell them they could pull them out if they want. And I would see these tumors because they had cancer. And literally they would come in and their tumors would be gone, and they'd bring in their blood tests, and their MD doctors would be blown away. Their T lymphocyte counts would come back to normal. Because I would fix their neck, and their thymus gland that's in their neck by their thyroid produces T cells. So the problem was, A, they had HIV, but B, their thymus glands weren't working.
Because of their posture of like sitting in.
Yeah. And so as I would adjust them, their thymus would start producing T cells again. It would start killing the cancer. So anyway, all of them quit. They all quit, which blew me away. And then the original guy, they all quit chiropractic, even though their cancers went away. And then the original guy quit coming in, but his boyfriend was coming in. And I would go, man, what's happening to him? How come he's like, I don't know, man. He just doesn't want to do it. His mom continued. They came for years. And he's like, he just doesn't want to do it anymore. He was emotionally tired of fighting HIV, even though he was healthy. So one day I got a call from his mom, and she said, he wants to come and see you. He's going to die. So I'm like, all right. So I went over there at lunch, and I walked in his room, and I mean, other than Cindy, at that time, I'd never seen anybody like this. He was like a skeleton with skin on him. And it took him every ounce of energy that he possibly had to say thank you. I can remember it like it was yesterday. So I told him, thank you. Like that memory was, I mean, I can't forget it.
Yeah.
And so I said goodbye to him. I gave him a hug. I said goodbye to him, and he died. So he lived with chiropractic, and he died without it.
Yeah. Wow. It's an incredible story.
Yeah. So, and you never know. I mean, I have other stories that are very dramatic, but to me, every new patient was a life or death decision. Because if they got adjusted, I knew they would live. If they didn't, I don't know what would have happened to them.
Yeah.
So I always tell, not always, but sometimes, we have the Scrooge, right? The ghosts of Christmas past.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think, look at all the patients that walked out of your office.
Yeah.
If you could see where they are 10 years after that day, where are they? And where would their life be if you knew how to communicate?
Right.
They'd be two different people.
Mm-hmm.
They might not even be alive.
Right.
And so if you look at it like every person that you talk to, you have that responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Then how would you look at yourself, your purpose, and your desire to be able to influence people on the highest level? And that's why now it's been 23 years of studying human behavior, so I could teach doctors how to get the highest percentage of people under lifetime chiropractic care, lifestyle mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, obvious, like the compassion and the thought process and the conviction that you have through your experience, that it's cool to understand that. I've been at the elite seminars and just what you're teaching, and I think that it's revealing in this interview to understand deeper who you are and why you are doing the things that you're doing, and how much I appreciate you creating these systems and sharing your experiences with us, because there's just such a massive opportunity to carry on these principles. Not to say that these principles are not out there, but I think the way that you put everything together is 100% unique to elite and self-empowerment, and putting both the chiropractic and self-empowerment together is just a really it seems simple to follow the philosophy, and challenging to implement the practices.
Yeah. Well, and just on a personal story between you and I, for the audience, Dalton is my godson. And, when he was young, I was definitely young, building a practice. I moved out of state. So Dalton, I didn't really hang around Dalton very much. And, it was like back then, I wasn't really a kid person. I don't know, I was more on purpose, and I cared more about, not that I didn't love Dalton, but I lived in a different state. So we didn't visit very often. And I just saw my purpose as the number one thing. And I knew when he was a baby, the minute I saw him and I looked in your eyes, that I knew we would have our time together. And I knew there was a bigger purpose, but I wasn't around a lot when you were young.
Yeah.
And then when you came to visit a few years ago, I mean, you came and we lived near each other. And then it was like, okay, man, now's our time, right?
Yeah.
And certainly, I think your whole spirit and soul was awakened to a whole new level into what you're doing now and more. I mean, you've evolved so much in 3 years. I mean, I think everybody evolves in time, but the rate at which you've evolved is truly exceptional.
Thanks.
And your commitment to being your best, finding your purpose, and following your destined path.
Definitely. It's cool that we get to do it together.
Yeah, totally.
I've got one last question for you, and well, actually two. One really quick. If you could define consciousness, what would you say? What is consciousness?
Consciousness, to me, that's a big question. It's a level of awareness. To me, I would just say it's a level of awareness. What are you aware of? I use you see the slides in the boot camp, we use the metaphor of an eagle, right? When an eagle flies at low altitude, they have crows on their back, crows pecking on their tail. So that's like flying at lower altitude. You say your attitude is dependent on your altitude, right? So that's a famous mantra people know about. So, and the crows are a metaphor for problems when you're in a lower consciousness. This is also in quantum physics. David Hawkins has quantified consciousness through measurement. If you're stuck in your past, you're gonna keep bringing problems in your past. When you function unconditional love, you have revelation. When you function and you have inner joy, love, joy, and peace are the energies of manifestation. That's where you create miracles. Like you look at Christ is a consciousness. Christ actually means the anointed. Anointed with what? Anointed with divine consciousness. He's conscious of God. That's who Christ was. conscious of his divinity. So I would define conscious as a level of awareness. I don't know if that explains it very well.
I think that was good. That was, yeah, no, I think it does explain it pretty well. And what is universal intelligence then?
Wow, that's a big question. Universal intelligence. I've never been asked that question. How do you define universal intelligence? I would say it's intelligence that runs the whole universe. In other words, depending on how you view God, it's a universal intelligence. It's I don't know how. I've never thought about that.
Cool.
To actually articulate what universal intelligence is. It's the highest supreme intelligence, consciousness. It's universal intelligence on a quantum level is another word for it, is pure consciousness. It's what is it? God, the supreme intelligence that runs everything. How do you define divinity? I'm gonna have to look that up, man. God-like intelligence. I gotta do some homework on that one.
Yeah, have to let me know.
Supreme intelligence that runs all things, life force energy.
It's interesting, I'm just finishing up biology, but we're learning about all the processes of cells and just like how DNA is replicated and synthesized. And it's so intriguing to know that everything from a virus to human beings and everything in between has all the same gene nucleotides. Like everything is all made from the same stuff, but it manifests in different ways, and these evolutionary traits allow for things to be different. Like plants create sugar from sunlight, which is just something. These are things that I go through school and I'm like, man, this is insane. How this is, to me, this is like a part of universal intelligence. How could that be? Or
yeah, like who thought of that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I guess that's universal intelligence.
Yeah.
It wasn't thought, it was being. It just is, right?
Yeah. I mean, same thing that you're talking about, connecting the brain to all the organs below it through chiropractic principles. And I mean, that is incredible. I mean, the stories you were sharing as to how life can continue with intention. I think that's part of universal intelligence too, and it shows our power. The woman wanted to live long enough to get her things in order, and then she didn't want to anymore, and that was it. She knew the answer. She decided she decided exactly how her life was going to go, and so did the gentleman who had the HIV. And you were consistent in also knowing that this is how it is. Everyone decided what their life was like, and they manifested their perception and their beliefs. And so it's so intriguing because you teach in the H.E.A.L.E.D system, whatever you think the world is, you're essentially right.
Yeah.
You're right. Hey, you can be miserable, and you're right. It is miserable if you think so. Or you can, take the bridge of gratitude from fear to love and have an empowered belief. So, anyways, it's interesting.
Your level of consciousness.
Yeah, your level of consciousness, right? Maybe universal intelligence and consciousness are synonymous.
Well, and then you think there's 7.5 billion people, which means there's 7.5 billion worlds going on at the same time.
Yeah.
How's that for universal intelligence?
Yeah, exactly. The same world. Yeah, and that's just people. Not
Yeah,
even animals.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
exactly.
not even the birds and the dogs and the horses and the coyotes.
Yeah, the point. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And the insects and the viruses.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of stuff going on,
Yeah, yeah. All right,
perfectly
so
orchestrated.
last thing, what's your vision for yourself, family, and community? And if you want to give us a plug on the things that you're working on that we can watch out for, or ways we can support you, let us know.
Well, there's a number of things. Obviously, Elite Coaching is coaching chiropractors. So it's really to help teach more people that chiropractic really is a self-empowerment system, how to empower people to live a lifestyle and get 90% of your patients into the lifestyle. We're living in a very much an outside-in world. People are afraid of the viruses. Like all these things aren't going to stop.
Mm-hmm.
God is always above, down, inside out. And that's the principle of chiropractic. We can teach people that health, your certainty, your who you are all starts from the inside out. Then we won't look for outside in solutions. We won't depend on outside in solutions. We can create independence. God gives us sovereignty to govern ourselves, not to let a government govern us. And those are God-given rights. And I believe chiropractic is consistent with those universal laws. I also think is now that people are losing faith in medicine on some level, that I think the new healthcare system is really that all doctors are self-empowerment coaches. And we lean more towards natural things than pharmaceutical things, than synthetic science, that we lean toward natural things. And so I also see this model spreading into medical field and helping doctors, more doctors who want to practice in a different way, who are frustrated with this, move into more of a self-empowerment system. Starting to have people approach me on that. I also see people wanting to find their purpose, taking a stand that the H.E.A.L.E.D system will flourish throughout the world, that I also just got engaged and will be soon married. And we want to start teaching couples how to create sacred union. There's so much divisiveness. Christ came to show us unity. He didn't discriminate. The people that he chose as leaders, apostles, they were tax collectors for the Romans. Paul actually would not crucify, but what's the word? Convict Christians. He took the least of the people, and those were his apostles. And that's one of the words, and God says, what you do the least of my children, you do to me. And so, to end separation and create unity. And I believe we need to start in marriages, start in our relationships, create unity. Unity is the highest consciousness. And so Molly Rose and I will start. Not only will we create a sacred union, that we're going to teach other people to create a sacred union, to create a more loving world. Once the families break down, everything breaks down. So if we can be strength and unity in the families, then I believe we can make a difference in the world.
Nice. That's so cool. Well, hey, thanks so much for taking time out of your night to share with chiropractic students and college students and whoever else is going to see this. I'm sure it will be the right people will see it, and we'll be changing the world together. So thank you so much, Dr. Fred. I appreciate
My pleasure. You can go, if you are a chiropractor, go to elitecoachingllc.com, or if you want the Back to Health book, you can also go to You Are More Powerful, spell it out, YOUARE, morepowerful.com. And there are ways to reach me also on those two sites, email and phone number.
Awesome. Cool.